After seeing the marketing for Dunkirk, Christian's excitement level grew, making the film doomed to possibly fail him. Can the film live up to his expectation? Will Dunkirk be the film he won't regret seeing? Will the film never surrender to his critique skills?
Whoa! 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 We just switched. Different times. What? So, as you know, I have been quite verbal about my support for Dunkirk, partly because the marketing's so good, as well as I love Christopher Nolan. But yeah, I was worried that because all the marketing was so great, I would end up being disappointed in the overall film. Thankfully, that wasn't the case. We switched again. I hope that doesn't happen to the entire review, but okay. Anyways, Dunkirk truly lived up to the hype I gave for it, and I was very satisfied with the film as a whole. Dunkirk, if you somehow don't know, is about the British soldiers who were stuck in the town of Dunkirk, France in World War II. This is like the early days of World War II. Anyways, the German army is like surrounding them, and they literally have no way to get back to England. Anyways, so civilian boats come to rescue him, and it tells the story of that event, if that makes any sense to you guys. Almost instantaneously, as soon as the first gunshot of the film goes off, it's like a jump scare bad kind of thing, where you go, kind of thing. As soon as that happens, the entire film has your heart beating for an entire hour and a half. This movie keeps you on edge, making sure that every scene has an important value to the film. The film uses its natural sound mixing to make every scene absolutely suspenseful and unforgettable. It's that kind of film that we're working with here, where literally every sound is put where every sound needs to go, simply to make each scene, as I said, more terrifying. On top of that, it becomes a matter of whether or not the characters will survive during each scene, and that's where 90% of the intensity comes from. But this is probably the best, like, intense survival scenes I've seen in a long time, and that's coming from a lot of survival films. I have seen a ton of them. So the film is told through 3 different timelines, and I think this is very important to understand before going to this film. So the main soldiers at the beach, their entire timeline takes place in an entire week. The civilians rescuing them takes about a day, and the pilots in the air on planes and stuff take about an hour. And the entire film is all these different timelines split up, and so you're constantly switching between them. And this can be a little distracting to some, is people don't want to see timelines constantly switching from one point to the other. But I think that's where, like, the genius of the film works, because if you were in that situation, that's what every event would feel like to you. The soldiers, it would feel like a week, the civilians a day, and the pilots an hour. It works completely with the story it's given, and in my opinion, makes, as I said, every moment count. Because there will be times where the timeline will switch and you'll watch a particular scene and then it'll come back to another timeline, as I said, and part of you will go, did they just like ruin something? But it turns out they don't ruin anything at all. That's kind of where the genius of the timeline works. And I think it's one of the reasons I enjoyed the timeline switches overall. However, with all this in mind, one thing I've heard a ton of is that the characters have zero character arc. And that's a complaint I hear a ton. But the thing is, as much as I'm a character arc guy, seriously, that's the thing I complain about the most, is when characters aren't, like, interesting enough. But it works here because this is Dunkirk. This isn't Omaha Beach where right after storming you could have a scene by a fireplace going, oh, I have a girl back home. We're not dealing with that. Each scene, each moment, each time period counts. There isn't any time to rest with these people. And that's personally one of the things I like about this film, is Nolan, who's very much a character-centric director, decided to take a step back and not do a film about characters, but about the event itself. And I think, for me at least, that makes the film more important than ever. The cast has awesome actors like Mark Rylance, Cillian Murphy, Tom Hardy, Harry Styles, the One Direction guy. Seriously, he's great for what he has. And that's the thing, all the actors in this film are great at the roles they're portraying in the film. It's just that, as I said, they don't have any character arcs. All the elements of Nolan are here, from the score from Hans Zimmer, the story, the cinematography, just the scope that, like, the IMAX camera brings to the film. It's all there. It's your Christopher Nolan film that you love from this guy. I think if I had one complaint about the film, it would be the sound editing. Not the sound editing with, like, the gunshots and stuff. That is excellent. Really well done, but I feel like watching it in, like, a small theater, which I was in. I wasn't in the IMAX theater that this movie is probably meant to be seen on, but just in the small theater, this is one of the loudest movies I've ever had to sit through. And considering that was a complaint I had about, like, Interstellar, but Interstellar didn't bug me as much because it was more just the score just trying to cram itself in at times, and that kind of was a little distracting. But with this film, like, something like a gunshot, like, is really loud. Or, like, an explosion is really loud. This isn't like Avengers where you just hear a This is really loud. And I guess that helps to give a suspense factor. Because literally when a gunshot goes off, it's like a kind of thing. It terrifies you. And I think that's part of where the movie's greatest attribute comes from, is the fact that it has this suspense going on with this sound mixing. But as I said, it's probably my only complaint with the overall, Dunkirk makes for a great cinematic experience and is arguably one of my favorite films of the year. I will be generous enough to give it as, it's really that good, a 9.6 out of 10. But it was really good. If you've seen Dunkirk, what did you think? Did you like it? Did you find it was okay? Did you absolutely hate it? What'd you think of it? I rather enjoyed it a ton, obviously. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video.